The Zephyrian war fleet moved through space like death itself. Their ships were black metal monsters with sharp edges and glowing red lights. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars pass by. He felt proud of what his people had accomplished. In 30 years of war, they had conquered 164 different worlds. Every planet they visited either surrendered or burned. Dilar. Bridge crew worked quietly around him. They knew their jobs well. The Zephyrians were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Their technology was the best anyone had ever seen. Their weapons could cut through any armor. Their shields could stop any attack. No enemy had ever defeated them in battle. Kethvar looked at the star map floating in front of him. A small blue dot marked their next target. The humans called it Earth. Intelligence reports said the planet had only 127 warships. The Zephyrian fleet had 400 vessels. The battle would be over quickly. On Earth, Commander Jake Harrison stared at the same star map in the Luna Station Command Center. The red dots showing enemy ships made his stomach feel sick. He had read all the reports from the outer colonies. The Zephyrians always followed the same pattern. They would arrive in a star system and demand surrender. If the local government refused, the aliens would attack. Within days, entire civilizations would disappear. The door to the command center opened and Admiral Lisa Crawford walked in. Her face looked tired but determined. She had been fighting this war longer than anyone else. The other officers in the room stood up when they saw her. Crawford moved to the main display screen and pressed a button. Images appeared, showing destroyed cities and burning ships. These were the remains of the Centauri colonies. 3 million people had lived there just 2 weeks ago. Now there was nothing left but empty space and scattered debris. The Zephyrians will be here in 6 months, Crawford said to the room. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the worry underneath. Our scouts report they are moving in standard formation. 400 ships, including their command vessel and support fleet. Captain Ryan Murphy raised his hand. He had just returned from a dangerous mission to gather intelligence on enemy movements. Admiral, I have been studying their tactics. Every civilization they conquered tried to fight them the same way. Big fleets facing each other in open space. Formation against formation. Crawford nodded slowly. She had read Murphy's reports. What are you thinking, Captain? Murphy stood up and walked to the display. He pointed to images of previous battles. Look at how they fight. They depend on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. They expect their enemies to line up and face them directly. But what if we didn't do that? The other officers in the room began talking quietly among themselves. Crawford held up her hand for silence. Explain what you mean. Every species they fought played by the rules of honorable combat, Murphy continued. They gathered their fleets and tried to win through strength and courage. But humans have never been good at following rules when our survival is at stake. Admiral Crawford thought about this for a long moment. The Zephyrians had better ships, better weapons, and more experience. In a fair fight, humanity would lose badly. But Murphy was right about one thing. Humans had never been interested in fighting fair when their lives were on the line. She turned to face the other officers. I want all department heads in the briefing room in 1 hour. We need to discuss some new ideas about how to defend our world. As the meeting broke up, Murphy walked over to Commander Harrison. Jake, I know this sounds crazy, but I think we have a chance. Not a good chance, but maybe something better than no chance at all. Harrison looked at him with doubt in his eyes. Ryan, they have destroyed 164 civilizations. Some of those worlds had technology almost as advanced as theirs. What makes you think we can do something they couldn't? Murphy smiled grimly. Because every one of those civilizations tried to be heroes. They gathered their armies and faced the enemy with honor and courage. That's exactly what the Zephyrians expected them to do. So what do we do instead? We become something they have never faced before, Murphy replied. We become the kind of enemy that doesn't care about honor or fair play. We become hunters. Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt, Colonel Amy Peterson was already working on secret preparations. Her team had been developing new weapons and tactics for months. They had studied every piece of data about Zephyrian technology and combat methods. The aliens were powerful, but they had weaknesses too. Peterson's engineers had been modifying civilian ships with experimental stealth systems. Old cargo vessels and passenger transports were being turned into invisible weapons of war. The work was dangerous and difficult, but it was their only hope. Dr. Karen Wells worked in her laboratory studying captured alien equipment. Every piece of Zephyrian technology told a story about how they thought and fought. They were predators who had never learned to fear anything. They expected their enemies to stand and fight like prey animals cornered by wolves. "That's their mistake," Wells said to her assistant. "They think like hunters who have never been hunted. They don't know how to deal with an enemy that refuses to be prey." Back on Luna Station, Admiral Crawford met with her senior staff. The room was filled with Earth's best military minds, but they all knew the situation looked hopeless. The numbers were simple and brutal. Even if every human ship fought perfectly, they would still be outnumbered 3-1. "We can't win a traditional battle," Crawford said firmly. "So we won't fight a traditional battle. Captain Murphy's idea about asymmetrical warfare might be our only option. The next 6 months would be the most important in human history. Either they would find a way to defeat an enemy that had never lost, or Earth would become just another empty world floating in the darkness. The Zephyrian fleet was coming, and with it would come the greatest test humanity had ever faced. But deep in hidden bases throughout the solar system, men and women were already preparing to show the galaxy that humans could be far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. 6 months passed like a storm of activity across the solar system. While the regular military prepared their ships for what looked like a hopeless battle, Colonel Amy Peterson worked in secret facilities hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Her team had been given unlimited resources and one simple mission: make the Zephyrian fleet disappear. Peterson stood in the main assembly bay of Facility 7, watching as civilian ships were transformed into weapons of war. The cargo vessel in front of her had once carried grain between Earth and Mars. Now it was being fitted with experimental cloaking devices and stealth systems that could make it invisible to enemy sensors. Lieutenant Commander Ben Clark crawled out from under the ship's hull, his uniform covered in grease and metal shavings. He had been working 18 hours a day for the past 3 months. "Colonel, the modification is almost complete. This old freighter will be able to hide right next to a Zephyrian battleship without being detected." "How many ships do we have ready?" Peterson asked. Clark checked his tablet computer. 237 vessels of various types. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining ships, even some old cruise vessels. None of them look like military ships, which is exactly what we want. Peterson nodded with approval. The plan was simple in concept but incredibly difficult to execute. Instead of fighting the enemy fleet directly, they would use modified civilian ships to attack from hiding. The Zephyrians would never see the attacks coming, because they would never suspect that ordinary cargo ships could be dangerous. Across the solar system, Dr. Karen Wells continued her research into alien psychology and biology. Her laboratory was filled with captured Zephyrian equipment and data stolen from their previous conquests. Every piece of information helped her understand how their enemies thought and fought. "They are perfect predators," she explained to a group of military planners. "For thousands of years, they have been at the top of the food chain in their part of the galaxy. They have never faced an enemy that could threaten them seriously." General Frank Roberts, the head of military intelligence, looked skeptical. "Doctor, how does understanding their psychology help us defeat their superior technology?" Wells pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans of captured Zephyrian prisoners. "Because predators think in predictable ways. They expect their prey to run or fight directly. They don't understand enemies that use deception and stealth. In their minds, only weak creatures hide from their enemies, so they will underestimate us?" "More than that," Wells replied. "They will be psychologically unprepared for the kind of warfare we are planning. Their entire culture is built around overwhelming force and direct confrontation. When we start attacking from shadows and disappearing without a trace, it will confuse and frighten them. Meanwhile, Sergeant Major Tony Rodriguez trained Special Forces units in techniques that had never been used in space combat before. His soldiers learned how to move through zero gravity without making noise. They practiced boarding enemy ships through tiny maintenance hatches that defenders would never think to guard. Rodriguez gathered his best teams in a mock-up of a Zephyrian ship interior. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy these vessels," he told them. "We want to capture them intact. Every ship we take gives us more technology and more intelligence about their operations." Sergeant Lisa Davis raised her hand. "Sir, what if we encounter heavy resistance during boarding operations?" "Then you disappear," Rodriguez replied firmly. "We are ghosts in this fight. We strike fast and hard, then vanish before the enemy knows what happened. If a mission goes wrong, you abort immediately and escape. Dead heroes don't win wars." The training was brutal and dangerous. Soldiers learned to use Zephyrian weapons and equipment. They memorized the layout of enemy ships and studied alien combat tactics. Most importantly, they learned to think like hunters instead of soldiers. Captain Steve Collins commanded the decoy fleet that would face the Zephyrians in open battle. His 50 ships were the oldest and least effective vessels in Earth's Navy, but they had an important job to do. While they distracted the enemy with conventional attacks, the real battle would be fought by invisible ships striking from the darkness. Collins stood on the bridge of his flagship, the USS Defiance, and watched his crews prepare for what many believed would be a suicide mission. "Remember," he told his officers, "we are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to keep the enemy focused on us while our friends do the real work." His tactical officer looked worried. "Captain, intelligence? Reports say we will be facing odds of 8 to 1. Even with our new tactics, many of us won't survive this engagement." Collins nodded grimly. "I know. But if our sacrifice helps save Earth, it will be worth it. Besides, we might surprise ourselves. Humans have a way of surviving things that should kill us." Throughout the solar system, civilian populations were evacuated to underground cities and hidden space stations. Earth's surface was left looking abandoned except for automated defense systems and a small group of volunteers who would remain to coordinate the battle. Commander Grace Parker was one of those volunteers. She would command a converted freighter, called Mary's Dream, hiding in the asteroid belt and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Her ship looked like an old cargo vessel, but it carried enough firepower to destroy a Zephyrian cruiser. "Are you sure about this?" her second officer asked. "We could evacuate with the civilians. No one would think less of us." Parker shook her head. "This is our home. If someone wants to take it from us, they will have to pay a price they never imagined. Besides, I want to see the look on their faces when they realize what we have done to them." The final preparations were completed just days before the enemy fleet arrived. Hidden throughout the solar system were hundreds of modified ships, thousands of specially trained soldiers, and weapon systems that the Zephyrians had never encountered before. Admiral Crawford stood in the command center of Luna Station and reviewed the battle plan one last time. It was the most complex military operation in human history, and it depended on perfect timing and incredible luck. "Is everyone ready?" she asked her staff. Colonel Peterson nodded. "All stealth ships are in position. Special Forces teams are ready for boarding operations. Our decoy fleet is prepared to engage the enemy." "Then we wait," Crawford replied. "In 48 hours we will find out if humans can defeat an enemy that has never lost a battle." The next 2 days passed slowly for everyone involved in the operation. Soldiers checked their equipment repeatedly. Ship crews ran final systems tests. Intelligence officers monitored long-range sensors for signs of the approaching enemy fleet. Finally, the moment arrived. Long-range scanners detected 400 Zephyrian ships entering the solar system in perfect battle formation. The enemy had come to Earth expecting another easy victory. They were about to discover that humans had very different ideas about how this battle would be fought. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 400 black ships arranged themselves in precise battle groups, their hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun like dark mirrors. Admiral Kethvar stood on his flagships, bridge and smiled with satisfaction. This would be conquest number 165. His communications officer turned to face him. "Sir, we are receiving a response from the planet's surface. Put it on the main screen," Kethvar ordered. Tired-looking human appeared on the display. The alien wore the uniform of Earth's military forces, but his face showed defeat before the battle had even begun. "This is Admiral Crawford of Earth Defense Command. We have received your terms for surrender." Kethvar leaned forward in his command chair. This was always his favorite part of a conquest. "And what is your response, human?" Crawford's image flickered slightly. "We reject your terms. Earth will not surrender to invaders." The Zephyrian admiral laughed loudly. His bridge, crew joined in the laughter. They had heard the same brave words from 164 other species. The result was always the same. "Then you will die fighting, just like all the others. You have one rotation to reconsider your decision." The communication ended and Kethvar turned to his tactical officer. "Begin standard battle preparations. Deploy scouts to map their defensive positions. I want this finished quickly so we can move on to their other colonies." What the Zephyrians did not know was that Admiral Crawford had been speaking from a hidden bunker on Luna, not from Earth's surface. The planet below looked empty because it was empty. Everyone who could be evacuated had been moved to safety months earlier. Captain Steve Collins watched the enemy fleet through the periscope of his hidden command ship. 50 aging Earth destroyers waited behind the moon, ready to begin what looked like humanity's final battle. His crews knew they were probably going to die, but they also knew their sacrifice would give the real plan a chance to work. "All ships," Collins broadcast on a secure channel. "Remember, we are not trying to win this fight. We are trying to keep them busy and looking in the wrong direction. Make it look like a desperate last stand." The human ships emerged from behind the moon in a ragged formation. They looked exactly like what the Zephyrians expected to see. A small outnumbered force making a hopeless attack against impossible odds. The enemy fleet moved to intercept them with casual confidence. But while the conventional battle began in the inner system, something very different was happening in the darkness between the planets. Commander Grace Parker's converted freighter, Mary's Dream, drifted silently through an asteroid field, its stealth systems making it invisible to enemy sensors. Around her, dozens of other hidden ships waited for their moment to strike. Parker watched through her ship's periscope as the first phase of the battle unfolded. Collins' destroyers were fighting bravely, but they were being slowly surrounded and destroyed by overwhelming numbers. That was exactly what was supposed to happen. "Target acquired," her weapons officer reported quietly. Zephyrian supply ship, isolated from the main fleet. "Fire," Parker ordered. A beam of energy lanced out from the Mary's Dream and struck the enemy vessel. The alien ship's shields collapsed instantly and its hull split open like a broken egg. Before any distress signal could be sent, the ship was nothing but floating debris. Across the battle zone, similar attacks began happening everywhere at once. Ships on the edges of Zephyrian formation simply disappeared. One moment they were there, the next moment there was only empty space. No explosions, no warning signals, just sudden absence. Admiral Kethvar noticed the first disappearances within an hour of battle beginning. "Communications, why are we losing contact with our outer patrol ships?" His communications officer looked confused. "Sir, I show no record of any distress signals. The ships simply stopped responding to our calls." "Sensor." "Ghosts," the tactical officer suggested. "Sometimes battle damage can interfere with long-range communications." But as the hours passed, more ships vanished. Supply vessels, communication relay ships, and even some escort cruisers stopped responding to commands. The main battle continued, as expected, with human destroyers being methodically destroyed. But something very strange was happening to the Zephyrian fleet. Lieutenant Commander Dan Roberts led a boarding party through the corridors of a captured enemy cruiser. His team moved silently through the alien ship, stunning crew members with non-lethal weapons and securing important areas. Within 30 minutes, they had taken complete control of the vessel. "Package secured," Roberts reported through his communicator. "Crew captured, ship systems under our control, ready for extraction." A modified mining ship approached the captured cruiser and began towing it away from the battle zone. To any watching Zephyrian sensors, it would look like wreckage being cleared by automated systems. The captured ship would be taken to a hidden facility where its technology could be studied, and its crew questioned for intelligence. Similar operations were happening throughout the system. Human Special Forces teams boarded isolated enemy ships and captured them intact. Other teams planted bombs on ships that were too well defended to board. The Zephyrian fleet was being systematically dismantled, one vessel at a time. Captain Helen Martinez commanded a pack of modified cargo ships that worked together like wolves hunting prey. Her vessels looked harmless to enemy sensors, but they carried powerful weapons hidden inside fake cargo containers. When Zephyrian ships became separated from their main groups, Martinez's pack would surround and destroy them. New target bearing 27 Mark IV, her sensor operator reported. Single cruiser appears to be investigating the loss of supply convoy 7. Martinez smiled grimly. All ships, standard pack formation. Let's show them what happened to convoy 7. Her ships spread out in a wide circle around the unsuspecting enemy cruiser. From the aliens' perspective, they looked like ordinary civilian vessels going about their normal business. The cruiser's crew never suspected danger until energy beams from 6 different directions struck their ship simultaneously. Admiral Kethvar finally realized something was seriously wrong when his fleet strength reports showed they had lost over 100 ships. The human destroyers had been almost completely destroyed as expected, but somehow his own forces were disappearing just as quickly. "This is impossible," he said to his senior staff. "Our sensors show no major human fleet movements. They're remaining. Ships are trapped and surrounded. Where are our losses coming from?" His intelligence officer pulled up tactical displays showing the locations where ships had vanished. "Sir, the disappearances seem random. Ships are being lost throughout our formation, but there's no pattern to suggest organized attacks. Could they have some kind of new stealth technology? It's possible, but our sensors should detect any ship large enough to threaten our cruisers. Whatever is attacking us must be very small or very well hidden." Kethvar studied the battle reports with growing anger and confusion. In 30 years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Enemy fleets were supposed to gather there, ships, and fight honorably. They were not supposed to disappear into the darkness and strike like invisible assassins. As night fell over the inner system, the conventional battle was nearly over. Captain Collins's brave destroyers had been reduced to scattered debris, their crews dead or captured. But the real battle was just beginning. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, ships continued to vanish without warning. Communication networks began, failing as relay vessels disappeared. Supply lines were cut when cargo ships never reached their destinations. What had started as a routine conquest was becoming a nightmare of confusion and fear. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge and watched his mighty fleet slowly dissolve around him. For the first time in his long military career, he was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey instead of predator. Somewhere in the darkness, an enemy he could not see was hunting his ships one by one. And the worst part was that he had no idea how to fight back against an enemy that refused to show itself. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display with growing horror. In the past 12 hours, his fleet had lost 180 ships. They simply vanished from his sensors without any warning or distress calls. His mighty armada was being torn apart by an enemy he could not see or understand. "Status report," he demanded from his bridge crew. His tactical officer checked the latest numbers. "Sir, we now show 220 vessels remaining. All attempts to locate the missing ships have failed. Long-range sensors detect only debris fields where some of our formations used to be." Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: genuine fear. "Have we identified the source of these attacks?" "Negative, sir. Whatever is striking our ships leaves no sensor signature. Our remaining vessels report seeing nothing unusual before their neighbors disappear." Lieutenant Commander Dan Roberts crouched in the maintenance shaft of a Zephyrian battleship, listening to the alien crew's panicked conversations through his translator device. The enemy soldiers were terrified and confused. They knew their fleet was being destroyed, but they had no idea how or by whom. Roberts signaled to his boarding team. 6 human soldiers crawled silently through the ship's ventilation system, moving toward key areas like the bridge and engine room. They carried non-lethal weapons and electronic warfare equipment designed to disable alien systems without damaging the ship. The first alien Roberts encountered was a maintenance worker checking power conduits in a storage bay. The creature never saw the human soldier before the stun weapon knocked him unconscious. Roberts quickly bound the alien and continued moving toward his objective. Within 30 minutes, Roberts and his team had captured the ship's bridge and disabled its communication systems. The crew was stunned unconscious before they could send any warning signals. Another Zephyrian vessel had joined the growing fleet of captured ships being towed to hidden human facilities. Captain Helen Martinez watched through her periscope as 3 enemy cruisers searched desperately for their missing support ships. Her pack of modified cargo vessels had been stalking these aliens for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The enemy ships were spread out in a search pattern, exactly where she wanted them. All vessels, execute attack pattern 7, Martinez broadcast to her hidden fleet. What looked like harmless civilian ships suddenly revealed their true nature. Cargo containers split open to reveal powerful weapons. Fake hull plating fell away to expose missile launchers and energy cannons. The surprised Zephyrian crews had just seconds to react before their ships were overwhelmed by focused fire from multiple directions. 2 of the enemy cruisers were destroyed instantly. The third managed to raise partial shields before it too succumbed to the coordinated assault. Martinez's ships immediately began salvage operations, searching the wreckage for useful technology and survivors who could provide intelligence. Another successful hunt, Martinez reported to the command center. 3 more hostiles eliminated. Total enemy vessels confirmed destroyed or captured now stands at 190. Admiral Crawford received the report at Luna Station with mixed feelings. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope, but she knew the hardest part was still coming. As the Zephyrian fleet grew smaller, the remaining ships would become more cautious and defensive. Colonel Peterson, Crawford called to her, Special Operations Commander. How many stealth ships do we have left in reserve? Peterson checked her status board. 47 vessels are still available for operations. The rest are either engaged in current missions or undergoing repairs and resupply. I want all available ships to focus on the enemy command vessel. If we can capture or destroy their flagship, the rest of their fleet will collapse. Meanwhile, Admiral Kethvar had reached the same conclusion. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that struck from shadows and vanished without trace. Traditional military tactics were useless against such opponents. He needed to do something desperate. All remaining ships, he broadcast to his surviving vessels. Form defensive formation around this flagship. Maintain close spacing and overlapping. Sensor coverage. Whatever is attacking us will not find us easy prey if we stay together. But Kethavar had made a mistake. By gathering his ships into a tight formation, he had given the humans exactly what they wanted, a concentrated target that could be attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Commander Grace Parker watched the enemy formation through her ship's advanced sensors. Nearly 200 Zephyrian vessels were now clustered around their command ship, like frightened children huddling around their parent. It was the perfect opportunity for the final phase of the human plan. All units, this is Ghostfall Command, Parker broadcast to the hidden human fleet. Target is confirmed. All ships move to assigned positions and prepare for coordinated strike. Throughout the asteroid belt and the outer system, dozens of invisible ships began moving toward the enemy formation. Modified cargo vessels, converted, passenger liners, and heavily armed mining ships all converged on the same point. The Zephyrian sensors detected nothing unusual, just the normal background noise of space debris and distant asteroids. Sergeant Major Tony Rodriguez prepared his assault teams for the most dangerous mission of the war. They would attempt to board and capture the Zephyrian flagship while the battle raged around them. Success would give humanity access to the enemy's most advanced technology and their highest-ranking officers. Remember, Rodriguez told his soldiers, we go in fast and hard, stun everyone we meet and secure the bridge within 10 minutes. If we take longer than that, the ship's automatic systems will detect the intrusion and alert the rest of their fleet. Rodriguez's team launched from their hidden transport in a small assault pod designed to look like space debris. They drifted slowly toward the enemy flagship, using minimal power to avoid detection. The pod's hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them. The first sign of trouble for the Zephyrians came when ships on the outer edge of their formation began taking fire from invisible attackers. Energy, beams and missiles seemed to appear from empty space, striking with devastating accuracy. Ships that tried to turn and fight found themselves facing enemies they could not see or target. Admiral Kethavar watched in horror as his carefully planned defensive formation disintegrated under attack from all directions. "How many hostiles are we facing?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied with panic in his voice. "Our sensors detect no enemy vessels, but we are taking fire from at least 30 different positions. That's impossible. Nothing can hide from our scanning systems." But even as Kethavar spoke, another of his cruisers exploded under concentrated fire from multiple invisible ships. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon, using stealth technology and coordinated tactics that the Zephyrians had never encountered before. Rodriguez's assault team successfully penetrated the flagship's hull through a maintenance port that the defenders had never thought to guard. They moved quickly through the ship's corridors, stunning alien crew members and disabling security systems. The Zephyrians were so focused on the external battle that they never noticed the invasion happening inside their own command vessel. "Bridge secured," Rodriguez reported as his team overwhelmed the last of the alien officers. "Admiral Kethavar is captured alive. We have full control of the ship's systems." With their flagship captured and their formation scattered, the remaining Zephyrian ships found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Human vessels that had been invisible suddenly appeared around individual enemy ships, demanding surrender. Many alien crews, demoralized by the loss of their command structure, gave up without a fight. Captain Martinez received surrender signals from 6 different enemy vessels within the span of an hour. "This is easier than we expected," she told her crew. "They're so confused and frightened that they would rather surrender than continue fighting." But not all the Zephyrians gave up so easily. Some ships tried to fight their way out of the system, only to find their escape routes blocked by more hidden human vessels. Others attempted to ram human ships in desperate suicide attacks, but found themselves disabled by precise weapons fire that knocked out their engines without destroying them. By the end of the second day of battle, Admiral Crawford could hardly believe the reports she was receiving. The mighty Zephyrian fleet had been completely destroyed or captured. Not a single enemy vessel remained operational in the solar system. "Final count," Colonel Peterson reported with amazement in her voice. 400 enemy ships accounted for, 68 destroyed, 332 captured intact. Our losses: 9 ships damaged, 0 ships destroyed. Admiral Kethavar sat in a human prison cell aboard Luna Station, still trying to understand what had happened to his fleet. For 30 years, he had conquered civilizations through superior technology and overwhelming force. He had never imagined that an enemy could turn his own tactics against him so effectively. The humans had not fought like any species he had ever encountered. Instead of gathering their forces for honorable battle, they had scattered into the darkness and attacked, like invisible assassins. 3 days after the Zephyrian fleet had arrived at Earth with dreams of easy conquest, the last enemy transmission went silent. Admiral Crawford stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching display screens that showed nothing but empty space where 400 alien warships had once been. The most powerful fleet in known galactic history had simply vanished without a trace. "Confirmed sweep complete," reported Commander Nick Thompson from his patrol ship. "No active Zephyrian vessels detected anywhere in the system. All enemy signals have ceased transmission." Crawford felt a mixture of relief and amazement. The plan had worked far better than anyone had dared to hope. Not only had humanity survived the encounter, they had captured an entire enemy fleet almost intact. The implications were staggering. But Crawford was already thinking beyond the immediate victory. Deep in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system, teams of engineers and scientists were beginning the most important project in human history. The captured Zephyrian vessels would not remain trophies of war for long. Chief Engineer Kate Adams supervised the massive reconstruction effort taking place in a hollowed-out asteroid near Jupiter. Hundreds of captured alien ships were being studied, modified, and integrated with human technology. The Zephyrians had brought their most advanced vessels to Earth, and now those same ships would serve new masters. How long until the first converted ships are ready for operations? Crawford asked during her inspection of the facility. Adams checked her work schedules. The first squadron of hybrid vessels should be operational within 6 months. We're taking the best Zephyrian technology and combining it with our stealth systems and unconventional tactics. The result will be ships unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Meanwhile, Major Pete Sullivan's intelligence teams worked around the clock interrogating captured Zephyrian officers and analyzing their computer databases. Every piece of information revealed more about the enemy empire's structure, weaknesses, and locations of other fleets. What have you learned about their overall military strength? Crawford asked during Sullivan's briefing. Sir, the Zephyrian Empire maintains 12 major fleets scattered throughout their territory. Each fleet consists of 300 to 500 ships. They also have garrison forces at important worlds and patrol squadrons protecting trade routes. Crawford studied the intelligence reports with growing excitement. The Zephyrians had made a critical mistake by sending their best fleet to Earth first. They had expected quick victory and had not prepared for the possibility of total defeat. And do you? They know what happened here yet? Sullivan shook his head. No, sir. The Zephyrian fleet was scheduled to report back to their high command in 3 months. When they fail to make contact, investigation fleets will be sent to determine what happened. How long do we have before they discover the truth? Best estimate is 6 to 8 months before they realize their conquest fleet has been destroyed. After that, they will probably send smaller scouting forces to investigate. Crawford smiled grimly. 6 months was exactly what humanity needed to complete their preparations for the next phase of the war. By the time the Zephyrians realized what had happened at Earth, it would be far too late to stop what was coming. Captain Ryan Murphy had been promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's new ghost fleet. His ships looked exactly like Zephyrian vessels from the outside, but they carried human crews and incorporated stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. The psychological impact will be devastating, Murphy explained to his senior officers. Imagine you're a Zephyrian patrol captain and you encounter what appears to be one of your own fleets. You signal for identification and get the proper response codes. Then suddenly your entire squadron is under attack by ships that look exactly like your own. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brooks, Murphy's tactical officer, looked concerned. Sir, won't they eventually adapt to our tactics once they understand what we're doing? Maybe, Murphy replied. But by then we'll have adapted too. The key is to keep them off balance and guessing. Every time they think they understand how we fight, we change the rules again. The first field test of humanity's new capabilities came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a Zephyrian patrol squadron investigating the disappearance of a supply convoy near the Tau Ceti system. Admiral Murphy's ghost fleet was dispatched to intercept them. The encounter lasted less than 30 minutes. The Zephyrian patrol ships detected what appeared to be a friendly fleet approaching their position. They signaled for identification and received proper response codes taken from captured enemy databases. Only when human ships opened fire did they realize their mistake. Commander Helen Martinez, now captain of a converted Zephyrian cruiser, watched through her view screen as enemy vessels tried desperately to escape the trap. Target the engines, she ordered her weapons crew. I want prisoners, not debris. 3 enemy ships were captured intact before they could send warning signals to their commanders. The 4th managed to activate its self-destruct system rather than face capture. Within hours, the patrol squadron had joined the growing number of Zephyrian vessels that had simply vanished without explanation. Admiral Crawford received Murphy's report with satisfaction. Excellent work. How did the hybrid ships perform? Better than expected, Murphy replied. The combination of their technology and our tactics gives us capabilities that neither side possessed alone. We can match their firepower while remaining invisible to their sensors. Any problems with the captured crews? A few technical issues, but nothing serious. The former prisoners who agreed to work with us have been very helpful in explaining alien systems. They seem genuinely relieved to be free of their empire's military service. Not all captured Zephyrians had chosen to cooperate with their human captors. Many remained loyal to their empire and refused to provide information or assistance. But enough had been convinced to help that humanity now had detailed knowledge of enemy technology and tactics. Dr. Karen Wells continued her research into Zephyrian psychology and culture. Her findings had been instrumental in developing interrogation techniques and propaganda methods designed to convince captured aliens to defect to the human side. "They're not evil," she explained to a group of military planners. "They're just products of a culture that rewards aggression and dominance." Many of them joined the military because they had no other choices for advancement in their society. Colonel Peterson, now promoted to general, oversaw the expansion of human special forces capabilities. Teams of soldiers were being trained to operate captured alien equipment and to infiltrate enemy installations throughout Zephyrian space. "Our objective is not just to defeat their military," Peterson told her senior staff. "We want to liberate their conquered worlds and turn their own empire against them. Every species they've enslaved is a potential ally in this war." The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Instead of simply defending Earth, they would go on the offensive against an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. It seemed impossible. But then so had defeating the Zephyrian conquest fleet. Reports began reaching Zephyrian high command about mysterious disappearances throughout their territory. Patrol squadrons vanished without trace. Supply convoys failed to reach their destinations. Communication relays went silent for no apparent reason. At first, the alien commanders assumed they were dealing with equipment failures or natural disasters, but as the reports multiplied, a more disturbing pattern became clear. Ships were disappearing in areas where no enemy forces were known to exist. Admiral Vextar, Supreme Commander of Zephyrian military forces, studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. In the past 6 months, his empire had lost contact with over 200 vessels. Each disappearance followed the same pattern: normal operations one moment, complete silence the next. "Could we be facing some kind of new enemy?" he asked his intelligence chief. "Possible, but unlikely," came the reply. "Our scouts have detected no unknown species with advanced military capabilities. The disappearances seem random and unconnected." But Vextar had not built his reputation by ignoring potential threats. He ordered investigation fleets to search for signs of enemy activity in areas where ships had vanished. What they found defied explanation. The investigation ships encountered what appeared to be Zephyrian vessels at several locations. The unknown ships responded to standard identification protocols and seemed to be operating normally. Only when the investigators tried to board them for closer inspection did the truth become apparent. The ships were crewed by humans. Admiral Crawford received the first reports of contact between investigation fleets and human ghost ships with mixed feelings. The secret was out now, but that had always been part of the plan. The Zephyrians would eventually figure out what was happening, but by then humanity would be ready for open warfare. "How many of their investigation ships did we capture?" she asked Admiral Murphy during their secure communication. "All of them," Murphy replied with satisfaction. 18 vessels captured intact, crews taken prisoner. They never had a chance to report what they discovered. "Excellent. That buys us more time before they realize the full scope of our operations."